So in this episode, I'm not going to sit here and tell you to not compare. Do you want to know why? Because comparison's unavoidable. If you find yourself comparing to other people on social media in your life, guess what? You're a human being. The truth is comparison is unavoidable, especially with social media nowadays. It's something we all get trapped in. It's something we all are susceptible to. So if you can't beat it, why don't you join it? What if we stopped trying to run from it? What if we stopped trying to avoid comparison? Because that's just setting ourselves up for failure. And then we'll feel bad every time we do find ourselves comparing. But today we're going to talk about how to compare in a healthy way. No longer feel really down on ourselves, no longer feel really negative, no longer feel like we're not good enough, but instead how to compare to actually make us better. How to use those thoughts of comparison, but keep us in that high frequency state. That's what we're going to talk about today. Because I personally find myself comparing all the time. But honestly, shifting to these healthy ways to compare has helped me so much in my life, and it prevents me from falling down those comparison traps and those negative thought spirals that lead me to believe that I'm never gonna measure up to what that person's doing, or I'm never gonna have that person's life. Before we dive into today's episode, if you enjoy listening to Fulfilled and if you want to support me, if you're not already, please press follow or subscribe wherever you are listening. This will really help in my efforts to grow the show, but also give you access to episodes every single week. And if you have a friend or family member in your life who struggles with comparison, this is a perfect episode to send them. So it would mean the world if you paused, send this episode to a friend or family member in your life. Okay, now let's dive in. Why do we compare? As I mentioned, we're a human being. It is literally our biological tendency to compare and measure up to other people. It's how we know that we're on the right track, right? How we know we're not falling behind too much. How we know we can survive in this world, in this society. It's how we know we're being successful in a way. In fact, studies show that up to 10% of our thoughts are ones of comparison. So again, emphasizing and highlighting that fact that comparison is unavoidable. It's something every single one of us does and always will do. And it happens whether we're realizing it or not, especially if you're present on social media. That is literally an app designed to compare ourselves to other people. So we're not broken, we're not wrong if we're doing that. We're literally just being human. But the thing is, there's a good and bad side to comparison. So let's talk about that bad side of comparison, right? That one that leaves us always feeling less than, like we're not doing enough, like we're not worthy, like we'll never get there. This is the downside of comparison that in this episode, I want to talk about how we can avoid, how we can shift away from this negative side of comparison that a lot of us struggle with to this healthy comparison that's actually helped me strive in life and learn and grow in a lot of ways. And I'll dive into that after we talk about this. So painting the picture of this negative comparison, and I'm going to refer to social media a lot in this episode just because it's that top of mind example for every single one of us. It's the biggest source of comparison. So personally for me, every time I go on social media, I'm comparing myself to other podcasters and creators who've been doing it for longer and who seem like they're way far ahead of me. And sometimes the thoughts that enter my mind are, oh my gosh, like, will I ever get there? Or, oh my God, they're doing it so much better than me. Like, they're already doing it. Is there even room for me? Like, why am I even trying? This is the scarcity element of comparison. This is that negative lack aspect of comparison that is replaying in our mind telling us, oh, just because they're successful in that industry or in that job means I can't. Or, oh, just because they have a social media that's doing the same thing, it means I can't or I'll never be there or be as good as them. Just because they're successful and happy means there's less success and happiness for us in life. Something that's entirely untrue, but this is what comparison kind of does to our brains. And another one separate from social media, think of that friend that you always find yourself comparing to in life. I know one person came to mind, so think of that person. If that person is doing really well in their life, they're doing something that maybe you want to do, or maybe they entered a relationship and they seem really happy and you're single and feeling a little bit bad about yourself. It's easy to look at that person and say like, oh, they have the perfect relationship. Look how happy they are. Like, I don't think I'll ever get that. It's like we tell ourselves that because they already have it or because they're doing that thing, that there's less for us, that we can't for some reason. And again, this is a lack element of comparison. And it makes us feel insecure. It makes us feel not enough. It makes us feel behind. And we project that negative energy, that negative frequency that it pulls us down into onto our relationships. So let's say that friend tells you how excited and happy they are in their relationship. And then your response probably won't be that excited response that they want because they're going to sense that you're coming from that lack and scarcity mindset. Like, oh yeah, that's like, congratulations, really happy for you, but they can tell that you're radiating that comparison mindset, that jealousy, maybe that lack. And another reason why comparison is not serving us, the thing we're comparing to, that person that we see on social media or in real life, we're comparing to an idea of them or their life. We are comparing to like a 1% that we're seeing above the surface and not the 99% that's below the surface that we can't see. Think of that iceberg the Titanic hit, right? There's so much beneath the surface we are not seeing. So that idea, that visual that we're comparing to, it's not even real. It's not even true. There are so many insecurities and problems and things that that person is struggling with that we're not seeing. And so by comparing to that fake idea, that false idea of what that person's life is from social media or just from viewing them on the surface, it's not even a legitimate comparison. It's a waste of energy and headspace because we're just creating it all in our head. We're making us feel less than for no reason because we're not reminding ourselves that there's so much that we're not seeing. So these are all the kind of negative elements of comparison, right? Those negative feelings it pulls us into and the ways that it really isn't serving us. And in fact, is just a limit in our lives and holding us back. But the good news is there's a healthy way to compare. There is a way to not have to avoid or run from this comparison, but instead just shift it to something positive, to stay in that high positive energy frequency. Because if we can't beat the thoughts of comparison, let's just roll with it. Let's pivot and shift and use it to our favor. And I'm going to show you how. So first way to shift comparison to something healthy. If you're comparing to them, there's something there that you can admire and learn from. If you're comparing to someone that you look up to and you're like, oh my gosh, they're so far ahead of me, or oh my gosh, I want that. Instead of seeing it as like, oh my gosh, I'll never get there, or just kind of ruminating in that jealousy, take a step back and ask yourself, what is it about their life or what they're doing that you want in your own life? What are you admiring? What can you learn from about their path? That feeling of comparison and jealousy means that there's something there of value that you're looking at. And you can take that to not only learn from them, but learn something about yourself. Like, maybe I want that for myself. And it's something you admire about them. How can you learn from them? I think back to every single time I felt jealous of someone or I was stuck in that negative cycle of comparison. It doesn't serve me at all. Literally all it does is pull me down into negative energy, and I end up projecting that and just feeling bad about what I'm doing in my own life. But if we learn to admire that person and learn from that person, that's something positive we can do in our own life using that feeling of jealousy or comparison, but in a productive way. So again, coming back to the social media example, when I see a podcaster or a creator on social media create these videos that maybe are doing really well, maybe they're going viral, or maybe I just really like the vibe of the video. I'm like, oh my God, that was an amazing video. Like, I wish I could make that. Instead of just feeling bad about my own content, I can look at that and learn from it. Wow, that's a great idea that I can implement in my next video. Or admire the social media approach that they're taking to promote or to create. What can I learn from that video? Instead of just kind of like projecting my jealousy onto it. And of course, not in a way where you're copying the person, right? But it's good to have mentors and people that we admire and look up to, especially in the industry or the career or the areas we're trying to advance in our life. We're allowed to learn from other people, to admire what they're doing and implement certain strategies and techniques into our own work in a unique way. So adding on now to that relationship example, right? That friend that maybe is in that relationship and you're single and looking at it, instead of projecting that jealousy, instead of feeling envious and telling yourself, oh, I'm never going to have that, like I'm so annoyed that they're so happy, take a step back and ask, what is this teaching you about what you want in life? Why are you feeling that need to compare to this person? Why are you feeling a little jealous of them? It's probably because you're ready for a relationship. It might be because you want that in your own life. So maybe this is your sign to take steps to more seriously start dating. And again, reminding yourself that just because they're happy in a relationship doesn't mean at all that you can't be happy in your own relationship. You can support that happiness of your friend. You can admire them and learn from how she got that relationship. Learn from that healthy dynamic relationship to incorporate that in your own life, in your own dating experience. Okay, number 2, the second way that we can transform that negative comparison to something positive, to something healthy. Let them inspire you, but not control you. Let me explain what this means. So just because they're doing something doesn't mean that you should do exactly that. If there is someone that has been coming to mind that you want to admire from and learn from, it doesn't mean that you should do the exact same thing. It doesn't mean you should try to replicate their life exactly and be that exact person. Because what this is doing is it's dishonoring our unique selves. We're all unique, we're all special, we're all different, and we are put on this earth to express that uniqueness. But if we try to entirely embody another person and be them, we're doing ourselves a disservice by not honoring and being that person that we're really meant to be. Your life, your timeline, your path will and should look different. It shouldn't look exactly like that person's. So that's another kind of trap we fall into with comparison, is thinking that our lives should look just like theirs, or we want our lives to look just like theirs. So while there's things that we can admire from and learn from, we can feel inspired by that person, but not let their path and their timeline entirely dictate what we choose to do. So how can we get inspired by it, let elements sprinkle into our life, but not entirely uproot who we are or what we're doing to follow what they're doing? So staying true to our uniqueness and our unique path while feeling inspired maybe from that element that we're comparing to or that person we're comparing to. Again, using them as that mentor, but not abandoning our purpose and our uniqueness. So that person on social media, yeah, incorporate elements maybe from their technique, that strategy that you see is working, or that element of the video that you really resonated with. But maybe there's something in the video that you're like, that's like really not me or not my brand. Or maybe there's something else that they do on their page that you totally don't resonate with. Just because you're getting inspired by certain things that they're doing in certain elements of their life doesn't mean that you have to follow suit in all the other areas. Or that friend in a relationship. I'm just rolling with these examples if you couldn't tell, but apply it to any specific example in your life that resonates more for you. Don't go out and try to date an exact replica of their boyfriend or girlfriend. You want to find that partner that works for you. So maybe you feel inspired by them because you know you want a relationship of your own, but it doesn't mean that you should go try to like date your friend's boyfriend's twin, right? It's not that exact person or that exact relationship that you're wanting in your life or that will really work for you in your life. It's the idea of having someone, but that someone for you might be entirely different than that someone that worked for your friend. And so let them inspire you, but not control you and not entirely dictate your choices and your path. So that's number 2. Number 3, this is one that you might not have thought of. Practicing this idea of downward comparison. So what is the difference of upward and downward comparison? Upward comparison is what I've been describing for most of the episode. That's when we compare ourselves to someone who we see as being really far ahead of us in a certain area in our life. So it's that person on social media who's been doing it for a couple more years, who has that really big following. Like for me, I look at other podcasters. It's that friend who's in a relationship where we feel like we're a little behind and single, right? We're looking ahead and thinking that they're ahead of us. That's the whole idea. But when we find ourselves comparing upwards, looking at those people who we think are way far ahead of us and letting us feel a little bit bad about ourselves because of it, we can instead practice downward comparison to remind ourselves how great we are and how far we've come, and come back to feeling grateful and proud of who we are and that progress. So in other words, take a step back and think about all the people in your life who have expressed to you how much they admire how much you've done, or who you are and what you're doing. There's so many people who are looking up to you, and you can use this as a reminder of how far you've come, that you should be proud of yourself and you should be really grateful for where you're at in life. We don't always have to compare to the person that makes us feel a little bit less than, right? We can also have the perspective that there are so many people who would feel so grateful to be in the position that we're in. And that can immediately shift us from scarcity to feeling not good enough to abundance, to feeling like we are worthy, to feeling like we are enough and doing enough. Reminding ourselves that there are plenty of people looking up to us, just like we're looking up to those people that we're upwardly comparing to. So personally, when I found myself, again, falling down that rabbit hole of social media, looking at all these amazing creators that I look up to, sometimes when I'm feeling a bit down and falling down that negative trap of comparison, I'll go back and reread those DMs that I get, those people that comment on my post saying, wow, you're such an inspiration, or wow, I really loved this video or this post, or just a really kind message that people feel inspired by the work that I'm doing. Or think of the family and friends who truly admire and support my path and my journey. And this downward comparison by no means is to feel superior or just boost our ego, but it's to offer a newfound perspective that we can feel proud of ourselves. We can feel grateful for who we are and what we're doing and what we have and where we're at, that chapter that we're in. Let's feel grateful for it rather than constantly running away from it, trying to get to that future destination. Because the truth is, there are always going to be people ahead of us. There's always going to be people to compare ourselves to. But we're just going to constantly be chasing if we never pause and take a step back and allow ourselves to come back to gratitude, to feel proud. And downward comparison is honestly a really effective way to do this because we can remind ourselves, wow, I might be that person for certain people. So with this simple shift, we can remind ourselves that we can feel good about our progress, about where we are right now, and that we're on our own timeline. So next time you find yourself comparing, next time you find yourself scrolling on social media or looking at that friend in the relationship or whatever it is that you've been thinking about throughout this episode, don't try to push those feelings of comparison down, but instead shift it. Shift to these healthy ways to compare. What can you admire from and learn from in their life? How can you feel inspired by that person while staying true to who you are, your unique self? And finally, how can you maybe incorporate downward comparison? Remind yourself of all the people who might be looking up to you just as you're looking up to the other people in your life. I really hope you loved today's episode of Fulfilled. Again, if you're not already, please press follow or subscribe wherever you are listening, and it would mean the world to me if you left a rating or review or comment on the show. This will help so much in my efforts, and I'm so grateful for you all, and I'll see you all again soon in your journeys to feeling fulfilled.